Next up is the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man. The figure is in the new windowless packaging. On one side of the box is the figure in the vanilla pose. And on the other side is the artwork of the character. Here's the top with the 60 amazing years of Spidey. And the bottom. And there's a picture of the figure in a different pose at the back. And a picture of the accessories that the figure comes with. Here's the bottom half of the bag. Now let's get the figure out. Oops. The accessories just dropped to the floor. Here's the mummified figure. And here's the mandatory slip of paper. And here's the 2 paper bags of the accessories. I guess this is something that I really need to get used to, opening up the figure from the mummified covering of the figure. Yeah, this is really plastic free, except for the figure itself. Lol. Here it is. Yeah. Here's the webbing. And the alternate hands. Really a lot of alternate hands for this set of figure. Look at that. I dropped one on the floor. I think we've never gotten a Spider-Man figure with so many accessories. This one comes with 4 pairs of hands, fists, wall-crawling hands, web-shooting hands, and a new one for Spidey figures, a gripping hand. He also comes with 2 pairs of armpit webbings. First one is a stretched out webbing, and the other is a crumpled version, and also a strand of web like the ones we've been getting all this while. Here's the wall-crawling hands, and surprise! I have a paint blotch over here. And here's the web shooting hands and another surprise for me, another paint blotch. The 3 pairs of hands are actually slightly different from the normal hands that we've gotten with the previous Spidey figures. This is from the Amazing Fantasy Spidey and this one is from the Renew Your Vows Spidey, and the hands are actually slightly different in size. The new one is slightly smaller. Same goes for the web shooting hands. This one you can see clearly. The Amazing Fantasy web shooting hands are smaller and has a slightly different sculpt. For the new web shooting hand, the pinky finger is not really parallel, unlike the normal web shooting hands that we've gotten. The pinky is slightly downwards. Same goes for the fists. The Amazing Fantasy Spidey's fists are slightly smaller. Here are the 2 gripping hands and the paintwork on this is finally okay. And the gripping hand has a hinge joint which goes up and down, unlike the other hands which hinges left and right. Here's the typical strand of web line. The gripping hands hold on to the webbing quite well. It can be either at this triangle or anywhere along the web line. And here's the first pair of armpit webbing which is stretched out. There's a peg at the edge of it. And here's the crumpled version of the armpit webbing. Here's the hole at the tricep to attach them. And it's actually kind of a hassle to attach it. It attaches firmly but would drop off if you knock into it a bit. So you really got to handle the figure with care when the armpit webbing is on. Here's how the figure looks like with this pair of webbing. And for this pair, I feel that it's quite confusing to know which one is left and right. Here's how it looks like. I don't really like this set of webbing. If you were to change the position of the arms, the webbing really looks awkward. The appearance of the figure does resemble Spider-Man's first appearance in the Amazing Fantasy issue, but there are some things that I want to nitpick. Like for example, I feel like the spider legs on the logo could have been a bit thinner, and also the spider body itself could have been a bit smaller. Here's the comic issue that we got from the Sentinel Wave first appearance Spider-Man, and look at the spider logo. The legs are kind of thinner. Same goes over here and here. And also for the web lines for the costume, in the comics, it's really kind of compressed and close together. The spaces between each line is really small, especially here. Look at the feet and look at how broad the lines are on the figure. Same goes for the web lines on the hand. The spaces between the web lines in the comic is really narrow compared to the broad spaces on the figure. Same goes for the web lines on the head. Look at how much spaces there are between each of the web line, and look how much web lines there are in the comic. This figure should have gotten way more web lines and have small spaces between each of the web line. I do like the eyes though, the eyes are good. And at the back of the figure, thankfully the Spider logo looks decent and is also red. I mean, in the comics, it was initially painted blue, I think, before it was retconned to red in the omnibus. I definitely prefer the logo to be red. Look at the web lines on the abs. This is how the web lines should be. Small spaces between each of the web lines. I guess overall the appearance still looks kind of okay, but like I've mentioned so many times before this, I really wish the web lines are closer together and there are more web lines on the red parts of the costume. For the paintwork of the figure, I have a paint blotch on the web lines on the head, a couple of scratches at the armpit. I got it like this, not that I scratched it or anything, and a bit of red over here. On the other hand, there is no red. I think the arms are casted in red and the black paintwork didn't go all the way to the edge over here, so there is a bit of red, which is an eyesore to me. For articulation, this new body mold has similar joints to the Renew Your Vows body mold. The main difference is that it doesn't have the drop down hinge joint and no toe joint as well. The neck joint is also the hinge joint and not the double ball pack joints. It's able to look up this much and down this much. Talking about the neck joint, I really don't understand why the recent Spidey figures has this big gap at the neck joint, because the older Spidey figures, like the Pizza Spidey, look at that, you can't see the ball pack on the inner side of the head, but this one over here, you can see. So yeah, Hasbro is really kind of cutting cost on the plastic, but at the same time, increasing the price. Head is not really able to tilt much and able to rotate all around, of course. Arms go up the side this much. Bicep swivel. Double hinge elbow joints and pinless. Swivel and hinge joint at the wrist as usual. The shoulder butterfly joints moves this much. There's a mid-torso joint which allows a bit of movement to the front and more to the back, and also rotation. Ab crunch allows the figure to move forward this much and this much to the back. Just like the Retro Spidey and the Renew Your Vows Spidey, there isn't any waist swivel. This much split, this much Van Damme split. Legs go up this high, which is actually slightly higher than other Spidey figures. Thigh swivel. Double hinge knee joints, pinless. Calf swivel. And ankle hinge and pivot. And for the ankle, it kind of looks really circular over here. I think it's because the circular part of the hinge joint is kind of exposed slightly. When you compare it with the Pizza Spidey, it looks more natural, like an ankle. And also, for the Retro Spidey, it isn't as bad. It doesn't look so circular, unlike the ankle of the new Amazing Fantasy Spidey. Overall, articulation is still good on this figure. Here's the Toybiz first appearance Spidey from the Sentinel BAF wave. I definitely prefer the body mold of the new first appearance Spidey, but there are a lot of good points about this Toybiz Spidey. The Toybiz Spidey has a sculpted logo and the web lines are all engraved. And as I mentioned about the web lines, Toybiz definitely did it better with more web lines and smaller spaces between them. Look at that. And also at the legs as well. Here's the back, and between these two, I don't really like this webbing done by Toybiz. Doesn't look nice to me at all. Here's the Spider logo at the back, and the outline of the Spider logo is engraved. You can also see creases on the thigh and the torso area, which I thought was a good touch. But of course, in terms of body mold, this diaper crotch really looked terrible. And I really dislike the articulated fingers on this figure as well. Individually articulated but can't really do a nice web shooting hand. Between these two, which do you guys prefer? Do share it in the comments below. Here's the Renew Your Vows Spidey, Retro Spidey, and Pizza Spidey. All these three Spideys are taller and slightly bigger in size than the first appearance Spidey. I think it's probably because the first appearance Spidey is supposed to be him when he's like 15 or 16 years old. So since he's still a teenager, maybe that's why he's on a slightly smaller body mold. The Renew Your Vows Spidey is really taller than the rest. Here are the backs of the figure. The spider logo on the Renew Your Vows Spidey is really big. This teenage Spidey, however, is still bigger than the Space Venom BAF Wave Ultimate Spidey. Here's the Armored Spidey, Cyborg Spidey, and Gamerverse Spidey. The Cyborg and Gamerverse Spidey definitely looks bigger in size, but the Armored Spidey is actually kind of the same size. Here's Retrowave Peter Parker, who is actually slightly taller than him. Stealth Future Foundation Spidey, and Iron Spider. It's really kind of a mismatch that this Peter Parker figure is taller than the first appearance Spidey. And here's how the figure looks like with the Retrowave Peter Parker head. Looks slightly big but still passable. The first appearance Spidey is actually a good figure, and to me, the main highlight of this figure is actually that it has the most accessories compared to other Spidey figures that we've gotten. 4 pairs of hands, that's really a lot. This new body mold is also good. The articulation on it is great. But like I said earlier, my main gripe with this figure is that the web lines should have been more compact and look kind of slightly messy, just like the comics. The web lines on this figure is too spaced out and not as accurate as the comics. And although he's supposed to be a teenager, I feel that the body mold should have been the same height as the Retro Spidey at least. But instead, this body mold is actually kind of slightly shorter. What do you guys think of this figure? Do share it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Do check out my other reviews and comparisons at my channel.